Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jonathan and I've been looking for the best tactical flashlight you can buy right now, and I think I found it. This is the Fenix TK16 version 2.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
So what is a tactical flashlight? Well, originally designed for law enforcement or military use, it has to meet certain criteria. And that would be things like a really bright light, a really powerful beam. Often you'll see the strike bezel on a tactical light. This will allow you to, for example, break glass in an emergency, or it can be used in self-defense. In addition to that, a tactical flashlight has to be super tough. So the right materials, it's got to be able to survive a drop test. It's got to be able to survive being submerged. And then you have the operation. It really should have a tail switch operation. This allows for single-handed use, which is really important, particularly if you're using it in conjunction with a firearm. So single-handed use is really important, but also simple to use. You can't be fumbling around trying to find the right mode with a tactical flashlight. You've got to be able to instinctively use it quickly and easily and not have to remember how it works. In addition to that, it needs a momentary on and also a strobe, which can be accessed instantly as well. The strobe is a great self-defense tool. So my question would be, why wouldn't anybody buying a flashlight want those features around a super tough flashlight that will last a long time, easy to use, and has some self-defense capability, as well as being super bright with a long beam range. And I think the reason it has that distinction of tactical is that it comes at a cost. This flashlight costs around $100 plus tax, which equates to about £100 in the UK, which includes tax. And that's not cheap for a flashlight. But if cost is not a factor, why wouldn't you want this in any flashlight you would buy? So in this review, I'm going to go through all the different features and aspects and compare it with a couple of other models on the market, and then mention at the end a couple of things that are perhaps missing from a flashlight like this, and then explain why I believe this is the best tactical flashlight you can buy right now. Okay, let's see how it comes and what you get in the box. The first thing to say is the packaging is really good. I find this with all Fenix flashlights. They do a really good job. So if you're thinking of this as a gift, this would really help. It includes lots of information on the packaging, and it's got this spot varnished finish, so it looks really good. In terms of the contents, let's have a look what's in the box. So Fenix, according to this, will replace the light within 5 years if it fails. And beyond that, you just pay for the parts and they will fix it. The instruction manual, USB-C charging cable, a lanyard cord, and a pouch. Is that the right word? Pouch. Now, this is okay. It's not brilliant. The edges are kind of heat sealed, so it looks a bit rough there. If I compare that with a Leatherman pouch, which is double layered in terms of material and has got stitching around the edge, then this is far superior. It's hard to be too stealthy when you've got Velcro involved, and it's just a little bit cheap, but it's included in the box, and other people might be happy with this. Okay, and that brings us to the flashlight itself. Now I have to say, this feels really well made. I've always been impressed with Fenix quality, and this is no different. It feels really strong in the hand. The finish on it is superb. It's got kind of a satin finish, which looks really, really good. You won't be disappointed with the quality here. So let's have a quick look at the dimensions. It's 143 millimeters in length in total. At the widest point here, it is 34 millimeters in diameter, and at the narrowest point, it is 25 millimeters in diameter. In terms of weight, with the batteries in, just over 6.5 ounces, which is 186 grams. It comes with a belt clip. It's very springy, feels pretty tough. I think this will do a good job. It's not going anywhere. No problems with that at all. It has a single LED, and that is an SST70 LED, which according to the manufacturer is good for 50,000 hours of use. Okay, let's look at some of the features. One of the outstanding features of this flashlight is its brightness. It is 3,100 lumens at the turbo setting, and that is super bright for a flashlight of this size. It's only very recently that flashlights of this size have been able to achieve that sort of light output, and it pretty much sets it apart in the market. There is one flashlight that I found that is brighter for this sort of form factor, and that's the Nitecore P20iX, and that is 4,000 lumens. But when you look into that, you realize that that has a quad array LED. So you have 4 LEDs in the Nitecore, each running at 1,000 lumens each. So it is super bright. But when you get a quad LED array, it affects the beam distance because you get more of a spread beam pattern. So the Nitecore is good for kind of floodlight illumination, but not very good for range. The range on the Nitecore is 220 meters, whereas this is 380 meters, and that is another thing that sets this apart. Now, there is another flashlight that you would compare this with from Olight, which is the Warrior Pro X, and that is a super lovely flashlight as well, and the range on that is 500 meters, so it beats this by quite some way. But when you look into that, you see that the brightness on that is 2,100 lumens, so it's a lot less bright, and also the spread pattern of the beam is much more narrow. The beam angle is much tighter, and it doesn't spill as much light with the Warrior Pro X. And that might be what you want in a true tactical situation where you just want to shine a spotlight on a target in the distance, then that might be what you want. But for more generalized use, which is what I will be using this for, I do want a little bit of a spread beam so it lights up the area around me. So it has the benefits of a long range beam, 380 meters, super bright light, 3,100 lumens, and also a beam pattern that has a spotlight and a spread pattern. And that's why I like this flashlight so much. It's made out of A6061T6 aluminium or aluminum if you're in the States. I have no idea what that is exactly, but I'm sure it's pretty good. It does have a Type 3 hard anodized finish, and I can tell you it just feels great. It's got these grooves along the main body, so if you are sweating, then you can get a great grip. The back and the front is slightly larger than the middle. Again, that helps you get a grip. The strike bezel is stainless steel. 3 points here, made of super hard tungsten steel, and that would allow you to break out of a car, or you're trying to smash a window to get into the car to maybe pull someone out. The glass windows at home these days are toughened and super difficult to break. If you've got a window that's locked and you don't have a key and you need to get out in a hurry, this thing will break the glass. So quite a useful thing to have. It's tested to 1.5 meter drop test on all angles. It's IP68, which means it can be submerged to a depth of 2 meters for 30 minutes. So no problem in getting this wet. It also has a toughened glass lens. It feels really solid, I have to say, and it's got an anti-reflective coating. So this will aid light transmission and will survive a lot of abuse. In terms of operation, the tail switch here is a real win. With a tactical flashlight, or I would argue any flashlight, to be able to operate it without having to think too hard about different modes is really important, and it doesn't come any easier than this. You have 2 tail switches. There's no switches on the body, which might take a little bit of finding in the dark. You've basically got 2 tail switches on the back. One is a big one and one is a small one, and they feel different under the thumb, so very easy to find in the dark. And the big one switches the torch on, and it remembers the last setting, and it has 5 settings. To step through the different light settings, you just press the smaller switch. So you switch it on and then you step through it with the smaller switch, which is again easy to find under your thumb. And the light settings are as follows. You have 30 lumens, you have 150 lumens, you have 350 lumens, you have 1,000 lumens, and then you have the 3,000 lumens. And I can actually feel my hand heating up with this light. It's unbelievable. And then press it again and you are back to 30 lumens. If I wanted to have my go-to setting of, say, 350 lumens, I'll step through from 30, 150, 350. Then when I turn it off, it's remembered that setting. So when I turn it on, it's on at 350. So it doesn't get any easier than that. And also this large button on the tail operates as momentary on. So if I just depress it softly, it will come on, and it comes on at that memorized setting. So it's on at 350 there. So really simple operation, and that's really important. You can operate this easily in the dark without looking at the torch, single-handed with one thumb, and there's a lot to be said for that. Now then, it has another feature, again easy to get at, and that is strobe. The fast strobe is a great self-defense tool. If somebody is charging in your direction, if you throw a 3,100 lumen strobe at them, that will disorientate them. That gives you an opportunity to enact some form of self-defense. How do you get to that mode? You have to get to it quickly and in the moment. Single button press of the smaller switch. And then you have the strobe. It's there instantly when you want it. Now, if you think, well, what if I want the strobe on permanently? If you want that, then you basically switch the light on and then press and hold the strobe, and the strobe comes on permanently, and you'll notice the frequency of the strobe changes. Really, there's nothing to remember there. It's so intuitive and easy. It's what makes a flashlight like this a real success. Okay, let's look at the battery life in the different modes for this flashlight. We have 5 light settings plus strobe. The strobe is always on at 3,100 lumens. The eco setting is 30 lumens, and with a full battery will last for 43 hours and 20 minutes. You've effectively nearly got 2 days and nights of low power, and 30 lumens is not that low power, to be fair. It is a reasonable light, particularly in a very dark space. Then we have 150 lumens, 19 hours and 10 minutes. Then we have 350 lumens, and that is pretty bright, I have to say, and that will run for a continuous 8 hours and 20 minutes. Then we're getting into the high brightness modes. So 1,000 lumens is super bright, continuous use at 2 hours and 50 minutes. And that is quite unusual in itself. A lot of flashlights at 1,000 lumens heat up and step down after just a few minutes, but this will run continuously at 1,000 lumens for 2 hours and 50 minutes. Then we get to the turbo mode, this unbelievably bright 3,100 lumens. It says here, as you can see, 2 hours 40 minutes, and there's a little asterisk there, and that is because it will not run in that high brightness mode for 2 hours and 40 minutes. What it will do is get very hot very quickly, and after about a minute it starts to step down, and it steps down to 1,000 lumens and will hold that. Bear that in mind. You'll find this with most flashlights in the very high brightness modes. They will step down after a fairly short use time, and that is because they're getting really hot, and it needs to drop down the power in order to preserve the LED and the battery as things start to get super hot. So as the battery starts to deplete, how do you know this? Well, the flashlight modes start to drop as well. You suddenly realize you no longer have 5 modes, it's dropped down to 4 modes. And if you were in 1,000 lumens, it suddenly drops down to the 350 lumens, and then you only have those 3 settings to choose from until you finally get down to 1 mode, which is the eco mode, as the voltage starts to drop on the battery. Now, when that eco mode starts to become exhausted, the flashlight will then start to flash 3 times every 5 minutes, just to let you know that the battery is going to fail. Now let's look at charging. You will notice there is no charging port on this flashlight. On many flashlights you get a rubber cover and then you plug a charging lead straight into that to charge the flashlight. This uses a different technique, and whether you like it or not depends on your view. To charge this flashlight, you need to unscrew the tail cap, remove the battery, and then the battery itself has got an inbuilt charging socket, which is a USB-C socket. You plug in the charger like this, and you will notice we have a red light while it charges. And when that light goes green, you know the battery is fully charged. By not having a separate port on here, you are increasing, in my view, the reliability of the flashlight. And certainly in a tactical sense, that is really important. If you can reduce the possibility of getting dirt and moisture into the charging port, reduce the possibility of it being damaged by being on the flashlight itself, and instead hide the port effectively inside the flashlight by building it into the battery itself, then in my view, that is worth doing. The other thing, I guess, is if you've got a couple of these batteries, you can have one in your pocket charging, say, off a power bank, and then you can continue to use this whilst the battery is charging in your pocket. That's something you can't do if you have a single port here. So there is another benefit in terms of having a rechargeable battery as opposed to a rechargeable flashlight itself. On the other hand, people might point to the fact that it's a little bit more inconvenient to remove the battery to charge it and will prefer to have a port on the flashlight itself. And I kind of understand that. It's a neater solution, one might argue. But in terms of practicality and reliability, I actually prefer this method. If you look at the Nitecore one I mentioned earlier, the P20iX, that has a flap opening and a USB-C connection straight into it. So that's how they choose to use it. And if you look at the Olight, something like the Warrior Pro X, it has a magnetic tail cap. So a lot of people like that, very convenient. You literally hold the charging plate close to the back of the torch, it connects and starts charging. The only drawback with that approach is you need to take that bespoke cable with you when you carry the flashlight. So again, more convenient, but in terms of practicality and use, perhaps not the ideal. There are a couple of other features to talk about relating to this flashlight. One of them, I am told, is unique to Fenix, and that is something called APF, or Advanced Pulse Transmission System. It's extremely difficult to put the current required from a 3100 lumen light through a traditional switch. They will have contact problems, they will potentially burn out, and it's been a barrier to powering lights brighter than 2000 lumens in the past. And the reason we've got 3100 lumen capability with this light is apparently as a result of that new APF system. So the only way around being able to power something as high power as this is to not have a physical electrical switch to carry the current, but to have this switch create a signal, and the actual switch in itself takes place in the circuitry at the very front of the flashlight itself, very close to the emitter. And this is a system that is apparently unique to Fenix. There are other ways of doing it. You can use something called a Hall effect sensor and use a magnetic switch mechanism, but the problem there is those sort of sensors are susceptible to electromagnetic radiation, so you might find that your torch is affected by other electrical devices in proximity. I don't really know a great deal about the details of how it works, but it kind of makes sense that you can't switch high current levels through a normal switch like this, so you use this switch to signal an electronic switch at the front of the torch very close to the emitter itself, and that is why you can get such high intensity output. Another interesting feature of this flashlight is that the battery is retained by a double spring system. You can see this here with the dual springs. So you have a spring on both the positive and the negative side of the battery. Now, if the flashlight is subjected to a shock, say it's been dropped or banged against something, if the positive, as in most flashlights, was a contact point rather than a spring, then there's every likelihood that a sharp impact will momentarily disconnect the battery. In this particular flashlight, if you disconnect the power altogether, as might happen if it had a single contact point at the front, what you get is a reset of the power mode. So say, for example, you are using it at 350 lumens. If I turn the flashlight off, it comes on at 350 lumens, so it's memorized it. If I unscrew this and lose the power and turn it on again, you'll notice it's coming back on at the lowest power setting. So without that front spring, if you drop the flashlight or banged it against something, there is a possibility you would go from your, say, 350 or 1000 lumens to 30 lumens, and you wouldn't want that to happen. Okay, what's missing in this flashlight? What would I like to see? The only thing that's really missing for me, I would say, is a moonlight mode, or sometimes referred to as a firefly mode, and that is where you have a power setting that is something between 2 and 5 lumens. With this sort of battery, that sort of brightness, it would last for days on end. And people like a moonlight mode because if you're in an environment where you have to have a very low brightness level, so you are not seen or you're not waking other people up, then it's really useful to have. And the lowest brightness level on this flashlight is 30 lumens, which in a very dark space is actually quite bright. This, in terms of a balance of features, really ticks all the boxes. You've got a super long range, but you've also got a spill of light as well to light up the near vicinity, which I think is really useful. You've got the super bright 3100 lumen mode, which basically creates daylight. You've got the tail switch, the momentary on. You've got the instant strobe. You've got the simplicity of use. You've got the durability and the rugged nature of this light. You've got the strike bezel. You've got long battery life, USB-C easy charging within the battery itself. You've got the right form factor to make it easy to carry. It's relatively lightweight. It's really well made. It looks great. And in terms of price, that might be a killer for some. $100 plus tax, or £100 in the UK, is not cheap, but you tend to get what you pay for, and that's why I have picked this flashlight, the Fenix TK16 version 2, as the best tactical flashlight you can buy right now. I should point out that when I was putting this video together, I reached out to Fenix to see if they would provide me with a sample of the Fenix TK16 version 2, which they kindly agreed to do. So there you have it, the Fenix TK16 version 2. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel. If you'd like to see more, please consider subscribing. You can do that here by clicking this link. Thank you, as always, for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.